Hey, welcome to the No Guts, No Game podcast. This podcast is dedicated to help you navigate the journey of buying a Sandler franchise. So whether you've just started the investigation or you're knee deep into the decision process, we've got you covered. Hi, I'm Dave Mattson, Executive Chairman and President of Franchising here at Sandler. In each episode, I'm interviewing a Sandler franchisee who is in your shoes. Now, maybe they were investigating 2 years ago or 2 months ago, but they're gonna share their experiences, their insights, the questions that they had when they were sitting in your chair. The goal of the podcast is to provide you valuable information and firsthand accounts from their perspective that will help you in your decision-making process for you and your family. So sit back, relax, and get ready to hear from those who've already jumped into entrepreneurship with a Sandler franchise. Hey, James, how are you? It's good to see you.
Thanks, Dave.
Hey, welcome to the podcast. As you know, you certainly have been with us now for almost 7 years, which it seems like it was just yesterday, honestly, that we spent some time together. And I wanted to kind of maybe shape our conversation in 3 big buckets, if we could. One is, like, what was James doing and who was James prior to Sandler? Let's get a little background on where you came from. And then why were you looking for a business? So during the investigative process, like, why were you looking? What were you hoping to see? And then we'll go to, now that you are a franchisee for, as I said, almost 7 years, and quite frankly, one of our top producers outside of the United States, which is fantastic. So kudos. I always say that to you. Super proud of you. And so I think we're just trying to share the journey that you went through with those who are just entering into the journey of, should I own my own business? So if we go back in time, if you can go back almost 7 years ago, tell us a bit about your background. Were you in sales? Were you give us a little, who's James?
Yeah, so this is my 3rd career, as I like to call it. I did my initial career. I was in the diamond exporting business for about 12 years when I began in business. Focusing mainly on sales, but also on buying and also connecting the dots between buying and selling, which was always very interesting. And then in 2008, when I realized that diamonds is probably the last thing people are going to buy when there's a recession, and I got into tech because that was just really starting to take off, especially here in Israel. I really built my career from the ground up in high tech. But what I did notice along the way, it was very frustrating for me, and it was also, I think it was frustrating for the people that were leading me, is that no one really had any process in place. Everyone was winging it. I had a decent career, and my last role as VP sales, I was in the fintech space, doing well. But again, it's just the gap between what we could be doing and should be doing with regard and the results. It was constantly on my mind, thinking, wait a second, things should be more efficient, and I shouldn't be so agitated and aggravated doing something that I chose to do to make a good living. And so, you have the career piece, but then are you really happy with the career? Are you really getting the most out of sales? And people either fall into sales or they choose to get into sales. Sometimes we fall into sales telling ourselves that we choose to get into sales. And I think that it's a very fulfilling profession, but I don't think I took the profession as seriously as I could have or should have until that period when I realized there's probably more to sales than just showing up and, giving a demo and hoping for the best.
So you went from diamonds, was that a B2C or was that like a wholesale?
It was actually B2B. It was
okay.
B2B.
And then you went into
B2B.
tech. Now
big volume transactions, and then into tech, small volume transactions.
You were a leader, but were you in sales or did you just go right into sales leadership?
Oh no, I was in sales. So I literally, when I got into tech, I kind of had to reinvent myself.
Okay.
And I started off in an SDR role, literally grew from company to company, from role to role. Oh yeah, I went through the whole thing and I've experienced everything. And the last role was VP sales. And at that point, I'm like, and as a VP sales, sometimes you can get sandwiched and you really see leadership doing, you just see it.
Shake your head.
Yeah.
So were you now, if I go back in time, because I think there's like maybe a couple categories of people looking to be an entrepreneur. One is I'm out of a job. If I'm ever going to do it, now's the time, right? Or I have a job, but I realize that I don't want that phone call to come, when I'm not expecting it, saying, we love what you did, but unfortunately we don't need you moving forward. And so, there's that in between. Like, so were you employed when you started looking for an opportunity, or were you kind of forced into it because you were on the street, as they say?
Yeah, so it's funny. I wasn't forced into this. I actually discovered Sandler by accident. So I have an interesting story. I left the role I was in because I was literally selling more than they could handle. And I'm thinking to myself, wait, there's got to be a better way to do things. I was looking for my next gig, and I literally fell into an interview. It was completely random. It was just a sales job. I wasn't even focusing on a sales job, but yes, I was at the point where I was maybe in a little bit of a survival mode because I got 4 kids. And this interview, the VP sales that was interviewing me says, James, do you mind if he's doing role plays? I'm like, that's pretty good. Do you mind if we do it the other way around? I'm like, what are you talking about? He says, well, we just came back and got some training abroad, and I'd like to show you what we learned. I'm like, go ahead. And we're doing these role plays. And I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, this is pretty cool.
Different. So different, yeah.
What did you say this was called? He's like, he's doing that front contract, and he's doing the paint step, and he's reversing me in a silver bullet. I'm like,
all the Sandler stuff.
All the Sandler stuff. And I'm like, and he's like, this is called Sandler. And I say, interesting, tell me more. And he's giving me an idea of what this is all about. And I take this little piece of paper, I write down the word Sandler on this little piece of paper, and I put it in my pocket. A month later, he didn't hire me, thank God. A month later, I find this little piece of paper on my dresser, and I open it up, and I said, okay, check it out, come on the website. And this was 7 years ago, so I'm sure you remember what the website looked like back then. And I was like, wow, Sandler's, this is all over the place, and they're not here. And so I literally reached out, and that was how I started to discover the world of Sandler. Never heard of it before.
So you bumped into it.
Completely. Yeah. I don't really believe that we bump into stuff. I believe that there's things that are just they're there at the right place at the right moment. We have to take action. If I didn't take action, if I didn't write down that name, if I did not reach out, if I did not, So that's how I began. And Kevin from the team back then reached out, and I came in for discovery. And I didn't know any of this stuff. He's like, come and see, come and feel it, come and see what this is about.
Which is a big commitment. You flew halfway across the world.
Flew halfway across the world. Came to Orlando to the conference back then, 2018, if I'm not mistaken, or 2017. And I was just blown away right off the bat. I remember one of your trainers gave us a buyer seller dance talk, showed us a little bit about the gaps that I've been experiencing my entire career. And I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, that everything she's showing us that's what's going on in the world. I can't believe this. And then meeting the trainers. Another compelling event was literally just meeting a bunch of very different people that yet had a very common alignment towards how they see the world of sales and leadership, which I found to be the energy.
Yeah, refreshing.
And 100%. It was not only refreshing, I think it was really, there's a better way on how to sell, where you can actually enhance the self-value. You're doing things for the right reasons. And most importantly, I think it's really enjoying that profession of sales. I think in any profession, we enjoy it if we're in control of what we're doing, and we have the freedom of time, money, relationships, and purpose. And I think at Sandler, that's definitely 100% one of the reasons that I chose to join this business and this network.
So let's kind of then jump to the investigation, because it sounds like you were somewhat networked, but I just out of curiosity, let's fast forward for a little bit, and I'm going to come back. All the clients that you knew from FinTech, did they become clients, or did you just have to go and start fresh because they knew you as the FinTech guy, right?
Well, yeah, I thought to myself, listen, this is pretty straightforward. I'll come in, and it's a good brand. I think now Sandler is known globally. I mean, everyone knows Sandler in sales. Back then, especially where I come from, not everyone knew Sandler. Yeah. So for me, it was really kind of building the brand up. And some people wanted to have conversations with me. Some people didn't want to have conversations with me because they're just wrapping their head around what is this new thing that James has brought in.
Right.
It took some time, but I did have to build it up. I think I did a pretty good job. I mean, within the first week, I had the first 10 days, I had my first client who was actually from FinTech, which is interesting. Yeah.
And now, did you know them ahead of time or no?
I did know them ahead of time, and I just did an executive briefing. The thing I loved about the beginning of this business is that I literally had a playbook of how to make this work. And that's something that Sandler kind of helped us with. It's just, look, it works. There's a system to doing things. And I'm relatively disciplined. So if someone says, listen, there's a way to do it, I'll try it. I'll do it. And, as we know, sometimes the less you know, the better. The less creative you are. And so just follow the steps. They work. This is science. Why on earth would I try and invent something where I could actually work a repetitive process that's been proven to work? I met hundreds of people at a conference that everyone's saying, listen, it's just a process. If you follow the steps, you'll be successful. So I think that is really what made me not only make the decision, but feel comfortable with the decision. And I'm going to be honest. I mean, I didn't have a ton of money to invest, but I did, make the effort to bring in what was necessary to invest in this business. And I have seen the ROI, and it is awesome.
So it's quite amazing. You said 4 children, right?
4.
Okay, 4. You're in a country where the brand wasn't well known. You had 4 children, probably didn't have 2 or 3 years of ramp up time, right? Like, hey, we need to feed my family and all that stuff, all the pressure we have as parents, right? In today's world. Before I jump into what did it look like when you started, when you went to the conference and you had an opportunity to talk to people, right? What are some of the things that just popped out at you? Because I hear a lot about sometimes the culture and the willingness to help, and it's just different from what people are experiencing. But what did you remember as, hey, this is it's so different or not different? What were some of the aha moments as you started to look at us? Because you're coming from corporate, right? So you're coming from a completely different environment now. We're talking about entrepreneurs, and what did you find?
Interesting question. I think for the most part, it was the willingness to help and support. I mean, complete strangers are telling me, anything you need, I'm here for you. And I actually did, when I began, I actually implemented a behavior of speaking to at least 2 trainers a week for my first year. And I did that, which helped me tremendously ramp up the business. Oh yeah. And I mean, I think at that conference, everyone was very open to share their experiences, what works for them, what doesn't work for them, the mistakes they made at the beginning so that I didn't need to make those mistakes, which was really helpful too. But clearly best practices, not only I'd say the technique piece, but also the mindset part. What kind of a mindset is required to be successful? And if someone's, I remember my days in corporate and working for other companies, that wasn't something that was a high priority. At Sandler, that is a high priority. And as we know today, which is it's pretty popular to talk about mindset these days. I think that is an added value. It's not only taking care of how we can become successful, but it's why we can become successful and what's necessary for us to do and how we see ourselves in order to achieve that. Because at the end of the day, our clients look at us. We're a mirror, right? And they look at us and they say, wow, that's how I want to run my business. And that level of excellence is definitely something that we've been able, as trainers, I think, in our network, to give to each other and also receive from home office in order to project back to our clients.
I agree. I think one of the things as people look back is that the culture here is completely different than the culture that you come from, which is, this is my patch. Don't stay out of my patch. This is my territory as a sales rep, as an example, or I want to make sure that I've got all the resources necessary for my team if you're a leader. Where here is, whatever we can do to help, which I've always found amazing, and it's true today. Certainly as people overcome obstacles, whether it's personally or professionally as well, I think people are jumping in to help all the time, which is amazing to me. But go back in the beginning days for a second. You just start, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about, you said you did an executive briefing, which is for us, it's a talk in front of strangers that kind of gives an overview of what they're currently experiencing. And they're like, oh my gosh, that is me. And then how Sandler solves it. And we'll go over that in a discovery day. But what was the first 6 or 7 months looking like for you? So I'm looking for, hey, what type of support did you get from us? And what was that on-ramp? And then what was that first what did you do activity-wise in that first, let's say, 6 months or so? What did it look like for you?
Well, I think, obviously, clearly it's building the business, it's bringing in new clients. I think that's the number one focus.
Yep.
And I think it's true for any business. And the essence of Sandler is, many times we get into this business because we're hoping to have a training or coaching business. But again, at the end of the day, we have to sell in order to bring in those clients. And not only that, we have to be a product of our product. So when I really wrapped my head around that concept very early. And when Kevin, my coach back then, he said to me, James, you have to be the product of the product. So when they see you do what you do, then they say, wow, there's something there that we need too. I was calling on CEOs. That was my strategy. So I would cold call them. I'm not the one, I don't like to cold call pretty much like everybody else, but I didn't call it cold calling. I just call it business calls. I just call it, the ability for us to really focus on bringing in the right people for the right reasons and uncovering their issues, which was pretty straightforward because everyone has sales issues. I mean, pretty much anyone I call on has sales issues. Pretty easy. You just have to engage. So I found prospecting, working on my ability to train and deliver content as well. That was another thing that I found to be tremendously helpful from my coaches at home office. And so that was my focus. It was prospecting, selling, and delivery, becoming a better trainer, a better coach in order to provide my clients with other businesses.
Now, were you coaching and were you training prior in your other role as a executive from a sales person?
Believe it or not, my biggest fear, the biggest fear I ever had is public speaking. And I remember the first time I actually got in front of that executive briefing, I was shaking like a leaf. And I remember when we met back at initial training, and I asked you, Dave, how do you do it? I'm terrified. And you said, James, don't worry, you just warm up and you start to fly. I don't know if you remember that. And that's literally how it is today. So, I mean, you can get in front of an audience, get in front of the right, and just warm up and you just start to fly. Because we own this content. And if you can sell it, you can train it. And if you can train it, you can sell it. And so, in my opinion, at the end of the day, we're here to help our clients not only sell better, but I think this stuff actually helps them lead better lives, more fulfilling lives. This changes not only their sales, but it improves the way they look at life, the way they lead their people, and of course, their self-value.
So talk about that for a second, because it's always so heartwarming when you talk to people that you don't know. They see a Sandler shirt or you bump into them and they say you changed your lives. And I went into the business thinking that I was going to teach people how to sell. And like you, being on the introvert side, I was absolutely terrified of public speaking. That wasn't my background, right? But I followed the leaders' guides and I practice, and you get better and better. And as you said, they don't know what you're going to say, so whatever you say is good, right? But it was a real fear. But so go back in time a little bit and just kind of help me or help the audience understand the impact that we have above and beyond. This is an actionable tactic and strategy for you to close or for you to prospect or for you to negotiate, whatever it is, because it's much more than that. Did you know that going into it? Or was that like when your clients came to you?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think one of the great things about this business is it's like this discovery process. So you're constantly discovering these new elements to, clearly to the system and Sandler and all, but also for ourselves, something to discover stuff. And I think that's that amazing piece of this journey. It's not just a business to make money or to pay the bills. This is a journey that, yes, I believe you can make as much money as you want, but or you put your effort to. but this is also very fulfilling because I think a lot of what differentiates Sandler than any other methodology or training company out there is that we really do care and implement the mindset piece. It's the self-value piece. And that comes it's pretty much in every step of our system. There's always that element of how we perceive ourselves. Yeah. And so for me, it was one, understanding my value as a sales professional in order to help my clients solve problems instead of being very self-centered, very product-centered, very solution-centered. It was more about being more helpful. And the moment I could understand that and realize that, then, and another thing is, it's really about not being needy. That takes time. A lot of people are very needy in their sales process. Once you're able to get over that hurdle, then at that point, when you don't act needy or you don't feel needy, clients cling to you. They just come and they stick to you. They get attracted to you. And I think that's one of the great things about Sandler is that, it gets way easier. It definitely gets easier, and we start to attract them, and that's awesome because at the end of the day, you plant the seeds daily, and then you can harvest the fruits every day, certainly. And so those first few years, there's an effort, I'm sure, like anything else, but I can't even imagine doing this type of work without the Sandler brand behind me, because it just makes it so much easier, so much more solid, so much more real, and so much more successful because there's proven science to it. There are great people backing us up. We've got our coaches and we've got our colleagues, and we all reinforce each other, which gives us a sense of belonging and, of course, a sense of value.
I'll tell you, I look back, I've been doing it now 38 years. And so it's a little harder for me sometimes than it may be for you. Have you noticed how you have changed as a person now that you understand Sandler and can use some of those? It's based on psychology. Have you found yourself using it outside of business as well?
100%. The thing is that at the end of the day, most of us, we want to do good. We want to be a force for good. And I'm a family man. I've got 4 kids. Personally, I like to invest in my well-being. I work out regularly. I relatively take care of myself, and it's just really just building a business and enjoying what we do. So I would say that at the end of the day, it's all about our relationships. So I mentioned earlier the freedom of time, money, relationships, and purpose. Yeah. And purpose is number one. And once you have a good purpose, that's something that Sandler has helped me realize: the goals, the purpose, where am I going? What am I looking to achieve? Because if we don't have direction, usually we just aimlessly wander. Relationships, you can't make money without building great relationships. And then, of course, it is the freedom of time. If some people like to look at this business as a lifestyle business, I like to look at this business as a lifestyle business too. I like to make sure that I'm doing what's necessary in order to generate revenue for myself and grow my business. But I do believe this is a lifestyle business. I do believe that one can look at this business from a perspective of how can this business serve me and not the other way around. Again, there was a little bit of a discipline involved from my perspective. That's just me. But I mean, this is wonderful business for us to say, how can this business serve me and not me constantly be a slave to my business without enjoying? So, yeah.
Well, you use that lifestyle phrase. I do think you have the ability, if you want to build an empire, you can certainly do that. Yeah. If you want to be a solo entrepreneur, you could do that. If you would like to have what I'll call a lifestyle business where it fits around your personal goals and you can still meet those financial goals as well, that's awesome, which is what you've done. So help us understand now that you're in the business. What did it look like when you first started? And what does it look like today? So for instance, things like, do you have people that are on your staff or not? What types of people did you call on initially? Where you're calling on today? And the types of services, did you just start with training? Did you go into management immediately? Did you do consulting? Paint us a picture.
Yeah, so initially I started mainly with the sales performance piece. Okay. But what I did find very early in getting in was I was calling on CEOs, and I did find that CEOs were struggling in that leadership role. So I did do quite a bit of CEO coaching and leadership coaching and a management program, simply because I found that the CEOs struggle. I have a model called MAGIC, MAGIC. I've spoken about it at a few conferences. And M stands for making decisions. They just tell me that they're struggling to make decisions, or their people don't make decisions and they have to make other people's decisions. A stands for accountability. They're struggling to hold their people accountable, or they don't have an environment where they can get held accountable. G is growth, personal and professional. They feel they're driving, pushing their businesses and struggling, but then they're getting left behind. They're not growing. They're not developing personally or professionally. I stands for isolation, relief, and imposter syndrome. So they feel lonely. They don't have an environment where they can share their issues. Imposter syndrome, a lot of them struggle with imposter syndrome stuff, where they know it's not even real. It's just in their head, but it is paralyzing them. And that's why they feel they're not reaching the potential that they can. By the way, not only in business, in other areas of life as well.
Sure.
And then finally is change management. Change management for them can become extremely, it could create a lot of friction, both professionally and personally, which then leads to conflict management. And you know what? When I developed that model, I kind of thought of myself before getting into this business, because I was struggling with all that stuff. Yeah. And I'm not struggling with that stuff anymore. But what I did find is that many leaders do. And so working with leaders alongside, because everyone wants to fix their sales, and that's great. And that, everyone say, well, if I fix my sales, hopefully I'll create more revenue and then all my problems will be solved. But we all know that's not usually the case. Right. Yes, we help you establish a really strong, powerful, repetitive process so that you can generate revenue and maintain growth. But then you can actually focus on other things in your business, in your personal life. It's the leadership piece. And that's how my business has grown. It's gone from just focusing on that sales stuff, figuring it out. We still do it. I love to sell and I love to train sales, but also helping the leaders, the entrepreneurs, the business owners grow their businesses from a leadership perspective while maintaining control in their sales process.
Okay, so you started off in, like we would suggest, you started off with sales because that's let's say low-lying fruit. It's easier to sell, right? Then you moved into management, which is probably training and coaching and consulting. Would that be fair?
Yeah, that is correct.
And you did that over time whenever you were comfortable or you saw a need, like, hey, to create stickiness, I've really got to get to that executive suite, help them grow, which puts more meaning on what you're doing on the sales side, which is a natural transition. Tell me a little bit about your business setup. Are you by yourself? Do you have people working with you? What does it look like for you?
So so I'm the only trainer here, and I've got admin, and I've got marketing, and I've got finance. So I have all of that set up from remote. I run a relatively lean business, which is comfortable and easy to navigate. Since COVID, a lot of the training has gone into online delivery, virtual, which has been very, very convenient, comfortable. I do still have in-house work, but I also have a public program, I have a mastery program, I have a leadership program, and of course, a hybrid model as well for those clients that are getting a little bit of a mix. So there's just there's so many different ways you can deliver, but I have focused on helping companies with their sales, with their leadership, and I have my team backing me up in order for me to deliver what's necessary.
So I think that's the greatest asset maybe at Sandler, above and beyond everything that we've talked about, which is the flexibility, right? I mean, you have the ability to do corporate work, which is private, you go to them. You have the public, which is they come to you, and you can have a balance of whatever you would like, and certainly we can help you with that suggestion. But then you also have who you're going to serve, whether it's salespeople, sales managers, customer success, sales engineers, entrepreneurs, the whole gamut, which I think that flexibility is awesome, and you can grow into that. People always, when they're looking at the franchise, will always say, well, what about X, Y, and Z? I'd like to do that. And I always say, you're never going to outgrow all the content that we have. You're never going to use it all. It's impossible to use it all. There's just so many different things based on persona. But as I go through, that's today. Before we talk about obstacles and what's going on and how this business kind of deals with the things that are going on in the outside world, which we'll get to here in a second, what do you see your business moving into? Like, if you look out 2 years, is it going to be the same? Do you see some changes in your business or based on the environment? What do you see?
So over the past year or two, there are other, not only the sales piece, but there's a customer success piece, which is very, very big, which should not be ignored.
Right.
And there are solutions. We have solutions for that. And so a huge part of how I see things is helping companies with that customer success piece. Because a lot of companies are focusing so much on bringing in new clients, they're struggling to maintain them, to grow them. And as we know, there's I don't know if this is a Sandler rule, but I do know that your best customer is your competitor's number one prospect.
That's right.
And so how do we actually make sure that we are how are we growing them and really building those relationships? Because if a customer is successful, you are successful. And so that's a huge part of where I see this business going. I'm investing a huge amount of my efforts in order to start helping organizations realize that there is a solution for this. Okay, I think they all know they have a problem. The only thing is that they know that there's a solution. And so, I'm growing the business. Looking forward to increasing the amount of people that will be doing delivery locally. I'm out in Israel, and so people train in English and in Hebrew, and so hoping to grow the business. I have an idea and a goal with regards to bringing in more trainers down the line. I like to sell, I like to train, but I do also like to have time with my family and my wife and spend time. Giving back time to myself. I'm 50 years old. So I think this is a great opportunity for me to enjoy life and but also still enjoy my business.
One last question before we go on to the current reality here. What questions, if any, did you want to make sure that you asked as you were looking, or now that you've been in it for a while, you would help others that are just beginning that journey that they may want to ask that maybe I haven't thought about as I start to investigate Sandler or anything else, quite frankly? Anything pop?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember the questions I asked back then is like, how does it work? And why does it work? All of this, I had a lot of whys and hows questions. I think the main question people need to ask, and this is the number one question that I asked Kevin. I said, when I began this business, and I asked him, got to ask you, how do I make this work? And he said to me, I'll tell you what not to do. I'll tell you what people do that they fail. And I said, what is it? He said, the last thing you want to do, what you don't want to do, if you want to fail, then get ready to get ready. Yeah. And I think the number one question someone needs to ask is, how can I take action to begin? Because if we don't start, we'll never feel success. We'll never understand what it's really about. And I think that everyone's preparing to prepare. I think this is true for any business. I'd say this to my clients too. If you're constantly preparing to prepare and getting ready to get ready, you'll never start and nothing will happen. And I think the number one question people need to be asking is, how can I start this? How can I start this? How can I get my toes wet? And take those steps, even baby steps, in order to start to build momentum, because it's just like, start propelling yourself forward.
What does your day look like now? If you had to time block it, what's it look like for you?
So,
I'm happy
to. Yeah. So I wake up super early. I'm like up at like 4:30. I wake up, I journal for 30 minutes. I used to journal for an hour, and I learned this from Sandler, changed my life. I'll journal for 30 minutes. This morning, I journaled for about 7 minutes because I got up a little later. I meditate for about 5 minutes, and then I work out for an hour at least. I run 4 times a week, and then I do weights and resistance training 3 times a week. I'm done by 7 a.m. So imagine that, getting all that stuff out of my system by 7 a.m., prep the kids for school. I'm in the office at 9 a.m. And then, ready to train, ready to help my clients become successful. That's really kind of just how I think that is really the component. I think that is, in my opinion, the formula for success. We talk about our BAT triangle. It's right at the top there, body, mind, and spirit. So I think that's number one thing we have to do is take care of ourselves. My day usually splits into my selling, my training, and my consulting or coaching. Okay. So I have days that I blocked out for training. It's my delivery days. So I know I'm going, that's happening. And my calendar is very structured. So I do have the time to do what's necessary. My prospecting and selling time is also blocked in. So I know exactly what I'm going to be doing that. Everything is very structured and easy. At the beginning, it was a little difficult because I wasn't used to it. But now, I know exactly what's supposed to happen. I don't believe in having bad surprises. I like great surprises. So if I built it this way, and again, thanks for this to Sandler and this network for supporting me and helping me understand that, I'm at the point where I have this my day is structured well, and I get to have a lot of fun.
Well, let's I'm super proud of you. So let's talk about obstacles and with this business, how you can operate the business. And if you think about obstacles, certainly we've talked about how you learn about yourself, right? So you've got some personal obstacles that we're overcoming every single day as an entrepreneur, for sure. You have economic obstacles. As you said, you left the diamond business in 2008, right? Because that wasn't a great time to be selling diamonds. You certainly have COVID, which was a huge obstacle. We went from face-to-face training to virtual like overnight, right? Which has really, in a way, helped us scale because you could do way more programs per day. But that's also, we made, lemonade out of lemons in a way. But you also have, above and beyond what 90% of the population, you have this other obstacle, which is this massive conflict going on in Israel right now, which, and hopefully that'll be over soon. But talk to us about how the business is structured, because you've overcome, certainly we're always dealing with our own stuff. You've overcome the COVID thing. You have, a conflict that is going on every single day, which I'm sure dominates people's minds. Talk a bit about how the business in your business allows you to continue to operate and help others in this time frame.
So you said the word obstacle. I'm not sure I'm familiar with that word so much. So okay. I don't see them as. Here's the thing, and again, it is you called this podcast
to the outside world. It's an obstacle to an outside world. They would say,
it is. Yeah, we should. Here's the thing, at the end of the day, and there was one thing, and one of the trainers when I began the program, when I began the business, there was a trainer that said to me, James, you got to go in and you got to listen to all the no guts, no gain tapes of David Sandler. That changed my life. And I know this is called the No Guts, No Gain podcast. In my opinion, the No Guts, No Gain is probably one of the best programs that we have. We have a ton of stuff. It's just because that's what it's all about. It's about us being courageous and brave and resilient and working through difficult situations, overcoming those obstacles, being mentally strong. I think that's the essence of Sandler. A lot of people love the selling stuff. There's the selling stuff, and there's the spin wheel and the submarine, and there's management and leadership stuff. My Sandler is the courage. It's the mindset. It's the mentally strong. So getting into that very early helped me become, I'd say, more resilient. When COVID hit, my business went from here to here, the complete opposite of everyone else, and when the 7th of October hit, it was, I can't even begin to describe what this feels like. And we're still in the midst of this thing. I actually had one of my best months since the beginning of the business the following month, because I was thinking to myself, why would I let, and the economy's come to a halt, right? I'm thinking to myself, this is James with this Sandler mindset saying, why would I let terrorists stop my business? That doesn't make sense. Yeah. And we have stuff that helps organizations and individuals overcome adversity and build resilience. That's what we do. It's written on the tin. So, no guts, no gain. That's exactly what we do. So for me, I've actually found that every time there was an obstacle where there's friction and conflict, it could be uncertainty. I did a podcast.
Just raise your game.
Yeah. There's a VUCA concept. I studied this when I was in university: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And we live in a VUCA world, right? And if we're aware of that, how do we overcome that? And I think one of the elements of what we do at Sandler is always anticipate worst case scenario, right? It's like overcome the objection before it's there. and we're always one step ahead. That David Sandler built it in his system, that we will blow up the objection before it comes. And so I think bringing back to this discussion, it's from a mindset perspective, we know that we've got awesome content and awesome ways of delivering it. It can help people. All of my clients, every single one of my clients has done amazing after the 7th of October as compared to their competitors, simply because it took me a few days to get back into shape, and then helping my clients realign, get them back into, I did a ton of free executive briefings, helping the community and helping other sellers and people, business owners bounce back. I use a lot of the no guts, no gain stuff and get their resilience back in place, get their business back on track. Because we do live in a VUCA world. And I think this conflict is, it's just part of what's going on and the trend in the world right now. There's never a dull moment.
Right.
So we have to equip ourselves with the right tools in order for us to stay ahead. So that's just my approach.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, I'll tell you what, the subtlety that came out for me that hopefully people understood as well. First of all, you took total your responsibility and accountability. I will not let that affect my family, my business. So, and you also indirectly, that the outside world, the customers that you're interacting with probably don't think that way. So you actually have helped them, if they're producing more revenue now, think like you're thinking, like this is an opportunity. Let's go. This will not stop us. And that mindset, along with the tactics and strategies that you're teaching, that's a winning combination. So, like even in COVID, a lot of our clients around the world did much better than they did before because their competitors were sitting around saying, it's over. What are we doing? Oh my gosh. Whereas you, led by example, said, this is an opportunity, let's go, which is awesome. Hey, last question for you, because I know you've got a consulting gig to go to. If you had to do it over again, is there one or two things that you would do differently now that you look back and you've got 7 years of experience under your belt?
There's one thing I would definitely do differently. I would start way earlier. Do this very, very earlier than I did. So all I can say is I would do it all over again. I would do it all over again and in a heartbeat. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and I'm very grateful to you, Dave, and your team at Home Office, but also for the network. I mean, I'm surrounded by the most empowering, amazing people, and that have courage, that are gutsy, that know how to be vulnerable as necessary, that know how to be assertive, know how to get me in line as colleagues. And I don't know any other network or environment where they have this type of support. So all I can say is keep up the great work, and I'm looking forward to many, many more years of success together.
Well, you certainly are the epitome of the Sandler brand, and so kudos to you. Look forward to seeing you at an upcoming conference. Talk to you soon. For more information on Sandler franchising opportunities, go to sandler.com/franchising. And don't forget to subscribe to the No Guts, No Gain podcast on your favorite app.